Pivot podcast. It's Hannele here with you today. We're going to go into something that might make you a little uncomfortable today. Well, actually, it might make you very uncomfortable because I'm going to talk about not knowing. And I want to start here because we are in Scorpio season as I'm recording this. You know that time of the year when things get really dark and we are invited to look beneath the surface, to go into the depths, to look at things that are not visible to others and maybe even hidden from ourselves. And well, what's more Scorpio than sitting with the unknown? And I really love this season, while it has its really uncomfortable moments as well. Here's something about me. I don't like not knowing. There, I said it. I like planning. I like to be in control. I like to be ahead of things. Well, on top of things more accurately. You know, the entire calendar color-coded so that I know exactly what to do and when to do it and what happens next. I set goals and then make a detailed plan how to get there. And this has been my way of working since forever. And I've actually even recorded one YouTube video and written some blog posts about this. And now it feels a little bit funny. But this has been me. This planning, controlling. And Kim is my partner. We have this saying in our family because we've noticed that when we get really stressed and nervous, when we don't know exactly what's going to happen, like if we are going to an event, we need to know what's the physical space going to look like, who will be there, how does everything work, what's the schedule, like all the facts. And usually there's nothing to worry about. But the not knowing itself, that's the really uncomfortable part. And it makes me tense up. And it makes me start spinning all these scenarios. What could go wrong and how can I avoid it? Trying to control something that we can't actually control yet. And maybe you can relate. Can you recognize this? Maybe you are nodding along right now thinking, yes, I need to know the plan. Of course, it's very human. And for me, I understand that it serves a need. But in many cases, there's fear behind this. And it's been my way to survive in a very uncertain world and sometimes very chaotic as it gets for everyone. But I've lived through some really difficult times, even as a child. So I've needed this feeling of control for me to survive. When everything else is falling apart, I still have my plan, right? I always know the next step. And it's kind of this illusion of control that is keeping my mind calm. And I say illusion because we cannot really control anything. Nothing is under our control. But how scary it is to acknowledge that and start living that reality, that nothing is under our control. But there's also something that fascinates me. While it's scary, there's something that fascinates me about not knowing. And this is actually what I want to explore with you today. Not knowing sits at the very core of my experience, like my being. It's both the worrying part, that anxiety when I don't know what's going to happen, and not knowing is the discovery part, the pioneer part. These both sides live in the same not knowing. They are like two sides of the same coin. And not knowing is actually the portal. It's a portal to a new unexplored world. And that just blows my mind every day, all the possibilities that are out there. If you think about this for a second, every single discovery, every invention, every breakthrough in human history started with not knowing. Someone looked at something and thought, I don't know, but I'm curious to find out. So it's really about this staying open and not forcing any answer or any direction. What I've also understood that while my tendency to set goals and do a lot of planning, it has worked for me very well. But they also set a ceiling, like a limit to what we can experience and achieve. Many times it's our self-doubt or procrastination or perfectionism, all those usual suspects, that then prevents us from really going wild with our goals. So we set those goals within the boundaries and the limitations and the limiting beliefs that we have internally. But what if we don't have a goal at all? Would that mean that anything is possible? What if opening up to not knowing is opening up to change bigger than yourself? This is the path that I'm currently taking and exploring in my own life and in my business. But our minds, of course, don't like this. There's just this urgent need that we need to close the loop, draw conclusions, to categorize information, to make a decision, any decision. This is me, this is like my pet peeve. Make any decision just to make the not knowing go away, because it's that uncomfortable. Confusion is really scary. We want resolution, we want certainty, we want to know. It's also a question of power. Admitting that you don't know is like giving out your power to someone or something else, or at least that's the illusion in our head, that is us giving power to someone else or something else. In the history of mankind, we see that the need to know, the need to be in control, has been a source of many, many wrongs. And I get it. I really, really do get it. Because not knowing, if I describe it how it feels to me, it's like I'm standing in this thick density, like it's really concentrated, like really heavy. But on the other side, there are a million potentials, all compressed into this one moment, and I just can't see through it right away. But what if, just what if, we looked at not knowing from another perspective? That not knowing is not just uncomfortable and it's not annoying, it's not just itchy or irritating. Of course, it can be all of those things. But what if it's also a treasure, a jewel, a present waiting to be unwrapped? What if not knowing is actually where the most potent ideas, thoughts, directions, and solutions are waiting for you? This is also exciting because this is the area that most people avoid looking at. We turn away from it. We distract ourselves, we fill the silence with noise, with busyness, with forced decisions. But what would happen if we didn't? I have homework from my coach to look into not knowing, and I've been doing this for a couple of months now. And here's something that I've discovered in this exploration. Not all not knowing is the same. And it's so funny because I try to categorize the concept of not knowing to better understand it. It's so meta to reduce not knowing around not knowing. But bear with me. So here are the categories that I've found so far. One of the categories is ignorance. Just a basic lack of knowledge about something. This feels pretty neutral. Maybe mildly frustrating, like, oh, I don't know how to change a tire. Okay, well, you just learn. Well, actually, in my case, I can just outsource it because I don't like doing it or even learning how to do it, but you get the point. For ignorance, there are a million ways for you to get that knowledge if you want. Then the other category is uncertainty. When you have partial knowledge, maybe even conflicting information, and you don't really know which way it's going to go. So there is uncertainty. And I think that this category has more emotional charge, like there's tension or anticipation. Your mind keeps trying to figure it out, and that can feel pretty exhausting. And that's when I'm trying to control it may step in. Then there's, of course, also willful ignorance. When you are choosing not to know something, even though the knowledge is available. Sometimes this can be a protection mechanism. And it's not always wrong, but also it's not always serving us. Because sometimes we just need to look at what we are avoiding. and then like solve this willful ignorance. And then fourth category I found, and this is kind of the fascinating one, not knowing that you don't know. These are the blind spots, the edges of your awareness that you can't even see at the moment. Yes, this can be where overconfidence lives, but this is also like this very supercharged not knowing. I'm sure that there are other categories as well, but if we think about these four categories, if you think about your state of knowing or not knowing right now, can you identify which type of not knowing are you in right now? And the reason why I'm asking you this is that when you can name it, when you can say, oh, this is uncertainty, or this is a blind spot I didn't even know I had, that already shifts something, because you are no longer lost in it. You are aware of it, at least. And perhaps when you're then able to appreciate the type of not knowing, that is the portal to new adventures, and perhaps you're able to also let go of some not knowings, because, well, there's no need to know everything in advance or quickly. Speed may not always lead to best results. So when you allow yourself sometimes to live in the not knowing for a little bit longer, that can open up gateways to other ways of knowing, your intuition, your body wisdom, answers from other people, from the universe, from the nature, anything that's around you. If you just like open up your awareness and let the answer come to you. I have an example from history, what not knowing, or a couple of examples from history, what not knowing has looked like and what progress it has made. Think about bacteria. For thousands of years, people died from infections, from diseases that spread through communities, because we didn't know about bacteria. Because bacteria is something that you cannot see. And of course, people made up all these stories about bad air or curses or divine punishment. And then someone invented microscope. And someone looked. And suddenly there it was, the entire invisible world that had been there all along. But we just didn't know about. And of course, the first people who talked about bacteria, about these invisible things, they were laughed at. That what, you're crazy. We can't see them, so they don't exist. And nowadays we know that they most certainly do exist, and very powerful creatures they are. Yeah, in a way, from a scientific perspective, not knowing is actually a life force. I attended this really interesting talk a few weeks back. It was about death and fear of death. And there was a biologist talking about death and evolution and also fear of death. And she said it so aptly that evolution itself depends on randomness, not control, not knowing everything, but randomness. Because if everything was predictable, viruses would wipe us out, because they would know how our structure is, and then they would be able to build themselves to really fight us. And we would no longer even exist. So our very survival rests on the fact that life doesn't know exactly what comes next. What I'd like to invite you to do is start noticing your not knowing situations. This has been my exercise for this fall, and I'd like to invite you to do the same. Just start noticing those situations. Like actually name them out loud if you need to. This is a not knowing situation. And then when you collect them, when you get curious about them, because when you become intentional about noticing not knowing, you are no longer a victim of it, and you become an explorer. It can also allow you to ask, which of these not knowings can I let go of? Which ones am I just holding on to that are just creating stress without serving me? Because maybe you don't need to know exactly how the event unfolds. This is me talking to myself. Maybe you don't need to know what your business will look like in 5 years. Maybe you don't need to know if you are making the right choice. This also enables you to identify which not knowings would you like to enhance, to lean more into, to explore more deeply. Because opening up to not knowing is opening up to change bigger than yourself. It's interesting when you start looking into something, then you start to be aware of all the places that other people are talking about the same thing. And Jeff Bezos was talking about this exact same thing, about not knowing and wondering for innovation. And he said in this one video that I saw that if you want to do something big, you don't have the proof. All you have is your instinct, your hunch, and you really have to be comfortable wondering in that space of not knowing. Being the not knower actually helps you go deeper. Because if you think that you know everything, you're closed, you're finished. The judgment has been made. So yeah, the case is closed. But not knowing feels soft. It's open. It's light. Yes, not knowing is judged by many. In business, we're supposed to have it all figured out. 5-year plans, revenue projections, clear strategies. Whereas in life, we're also supposed to know what we want, where we are going, who we are becoming. But if you feel into that, there's harshness in that expectation. There's pressure and there's heaviness. But if you are opening up to not knowing, it's a relief actually. It's a relief if you can get past that uncomfortableness. What's happening inside of me now that I've been doing this not knowing exercise, I'm noticing that I'm more at ease with not knowing now than I used to be. I'm more accepting of it and more willing to let clarity come if it's coming at all. Many times I don't have clarity at all, and I'm doing the thing, whatever the day calls for me to do. Yes, my nervous system hated not knowing at first. And for me, it has meant that I've been implementing some very practical routines to adjust my system to this, because it's not only our minds that need to be adapted, it's the entire system, the body, the nervous system, everything. And one of the things that I've done this fall is that I scheduled these weekly islands of doing nothing and have just observed what happens in my system if I'm not doing anything. On a weekday, during daytime, doing nothing. Can you imagine how crazy that feels? At first I fell asleep, and there's been so much progress. I probably need to do an entire episode on this because it's been so interesting. But gradually I am opening up to this unplanning and not controlling. And what is behind, there's joy. And then there is spontaneity. I've also expanded my understanding of the need to have clarity. Because maybe it's about not knowing, maybe it's about me feeling. Maybe I need to feel and not know. Or maybe the timing is not right. Maybe that's why the clarity is not there yet. Or maybe it's time to do something else entirely. Or maybe it's not about taking the step at all. Maybe it's about standing still. And even defocusing is a possibility in this not knowing situation. So there are all these different possibilities, all these different perspectives to look at the not knowing situation. I'm not going to lie to you, this takes courage. It's not easy to stand in the unknown when everything in our culture is telling us to go figure it out, go have a plan, take action now. But there is a paradox in here, the beautiful, frustrating, and magical paradox. Not knowing is the gateway to peace and harmony. This has been my discovery. And I know it sounds backwards. You would think that knowing would bring peace and not knowing would bring chaos, but it's the opposite. When you open up to this paradox, you'll find the magic and you'll find the bliss. And this is something that has happened to me. Because when I actually have stepped into that thick density of not knowing, when I have stopped resisting it and start being present with it, it opens up. It truly is a portal, a treasure. And it's so wonderful that I never know what I find. I never know. And just think what happens when you approach any situation, any given day with this mindset, letting go everything you think you know, like a blank slate, tabula rasa. You become available for something new, something you couldn't have planned or controlled or predicted. So this is my invitation to you. Next time you find yourself in confusion, in not knowing, in that uncomfortable space of uncertainty, celebrate it. Because confusion means you are out of your mind. It's not just in your mind anymore. It means that you are finally starting to get it. Not knowing is something, it's not something to avoid, or it's not something to fix. It's everything. It's everything. It's where the magic lives. So be confident about your not knowing. Don't turn away from it. Bring your curiosity, your courage, your sense of adventure, because the greatest discoveries of your life are waiting for you there, in that space you've been avoiding in the not knowing. Okay, my friend, thank you so much for being here with me in this exploration. Until next time, stay curious, stay open. And if you would want to explore your not knowing and how that might guide you in your business, check out my Business Intuition Workshop. It's an intuitive 2-hour one-on-one deep dive with transformative clarity and compass for what's next for you. You'll find the link in the show notes. This is the Freedom Pivot Podcast. I'll talk to you soon.